There's nothing quite like bunting or festival flags like these to set the scene of a sunny summer's day. Just walking through the city centre here, I've stumbled upon this colourful scene. Let's see if I can capture it on my camera. So, just pointing my camera in the vague direction of this scene, and it's instantly really quite pleasing. I've got lots of great components here. I've got this sky with a little bit of wispy cloud in there that's quite interesting. I've got the pleasing alleyway that draws the viewer's eyes right the way through from the top to the bottom of the frame. That's not too messy, but is interesting enough in its own right. And then, of course, I've got the colours of these festival flags in the foreground. What I'm going to do first of all is just turn on HDR mode, just to give these colours a bit more of an opportunity to pop. And in the viewfinder, I can certainly see that happening. The wind is just starting to tickle the bunting right now. So I'm just going to grab a couple of those. And actually the HDR does enable the lights of the sky and of the plastic bunting and the darks of the bricks to kind of sing out. Now, what I'm going to do though is just experiment with a couple of different framings here, because it's good, and I love how the alley leads the viewer's eye down the frame, but I wonder if we can do something a bit more creative. So just punching into 2x zoom, what do we get? Well, this compresses the distance. It kind of makes everything seem a little bit closer, as you'd expect with a zoom, but we do lose a bit of the, well, we lose quite a few of the flags. There we go. And it's quite different. I mean, I could take a few steps back, but then I'd be in the middle of the road. So while it's a good option for a detail shot, I'm struggling to find something that, I mean, maybe if I tilt on an angle like that. Okay, so now we've got the line of the bunting leading us towards the middle here. And I can use that kind of quirky angle just to include more of the bunting in the frame. Now, the other one I want to try is the wide-angled lens here. And just by pointing that down the alleyway, the same as the zoom lens had this effect of really compressing the distance, the wide-angled lens has done the opposite. And now the end of the alleyway seems way, way, way further away than it really is. But I don't mind that. So what I can do is just point up a little bit. So I'm not spending so much of my frame on the floor, and instead I'm focusing on the flags a bit. But if I take a step forward and I angle even further up, then something really interesting happens. So what this is doing, see how the corners of these buildings now, I can see the corners at the top of the frame, and it looks as though, it feels rather as though I'm being surrounded by these buildings. I've got the grid lines on my phone, and I'm holding it as tight as I can, and I'm using the grid lines to try and get some true verticals, true horizontals there, while I'm still getting just this first line of flags across that top third and really moving all the way down to the bottom of the frame. That, I think, is going to make a nice pleasing frame that gets the best of the colours. And you know what? If somebody happens to pass in front of frame with a backpack or a bicycle, I'm here for that. And the other benefit of angling upwards when you have a wide-angled lens on is that you get a bit more of that sky, which is interesting, and you frame out some of the rubbish on the floor as well. All right, let's see how it comes out. With a 1x zoom lens, this is the shot of the alleyway and these festival flags that we get. And this one doesn't have any people in there. It makes it look nice and clean. I think for context, you do have that scooter bike thing on the left-hand side, but your eyes aren't necessarily drawn to that. They're drawn to the colour at the top, this vertical shaft of sky along the alleyway, maybe the lamppost at the end. And that's, without having to do too much, I think a pretty successful shot. There's some things I could have done. I could have played maybe rather than going for completely symmetrical, I could have played with the thirds a little bit, but overall, pretty happy with how that's come out. When I applied the 2x zoom lens to the phone, I couldn't get the entire scene, and instead I had to focus on a detail. And by moving the phone to a bit of a quirky angle, I got this, I think, really interesting take. The flags now appear as though they've been flipped by 90 degrees. We've got some lines rather than a vertical shaft of sky. It's now coming in at an angle across the right of the frame. We see a lot more of the brick. It's interesting. It's a little bit messy, perhaps because I lose my sense of what it is I'm looking at, but maybe this is a shot that complements the others but doesn't necessarily work so well in its own right. With the wide-angled lens in operation, I'm able to capture so much more of the scene, including, and this is where my eyes are drawn to initially, the tops of the buildings right at the top of the frame, those corners, and it feels like it's a funnel for my eyes. I start at the top and I'm drawn in, and on the way down I see the alleyway sign, I see the texture of the brick, I see all the colours of the flags until I come to the pavement at the bottom. I think it's a compelling shot. All three of the shots have their merits. I think I could even get away with posting these three as a carousel, as a triptych.